If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, welcome to the UK Property Market Stat Show. Joined today by my special guest, and we'll come to him in a second, Bryan Mansell, big in the game in the property business. The purpose of this show is as follows. The vast majority of property statistics, the Land Registry, Halifax, nationwide details, those sort of indexes, deal with the bottom end of the funnel when it comes to the property market. We are in quite a unique position that we're looking at the top end of the sales funnel, because it's all about the number of properties coming on the market and how many properties then actually sell in terms of sold subject to contract. I don't know if anyone is aware, but it takes on average 19 weeks for a property from a sale agreed to actually exchange and complete, and then another approximately 3 months for it to show on the Land Registry. So the information on the Land Registry, we're filming this in May, is dealing with properties that probably came on the market last summer. The sale agreed on those properties probably in the autumn, and they were actually completed probably in the order of around February or March. So, but we're dealing with right now, as Fat Boy Slim says. We're looking at why is this important? The more houses that come on the market, if they're not selling, more properties come on the market. The net effect means that prices will go down. It's really important. That's what caused, not what caused house prices to go down, but when back in 2008, when prices did drop, it's because there was just simply too many houses and not enough demand, because it is the classic supply and demand. We will also look at agents who are reducing their properties and what they're reducing them. The properties that are selling, the types of properties that are selling. We will also then go and look at all of those stats on a regional basis. And then finally, we will end up at a town or city in our Fair Isle, and we will deep dive into that particular town's property market and see which estate agent and letting agents are the best. Bryan, thanks for having you back on the wonderful UK Property Market Stat Show. You certainly are damn good value for money. Thanks for joining me. How are you today, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Excited as always to be taking part, and thank you for inviting me back. I can't be doing too badly. I think it's the third or fourth time.
Always good value for money. You are always good value for money. Right then, so we're dealing, Bryan, with week 19 of 2023, and for the purposes of the boys and girls out there in the estate agency land, week 19 was from Monday the 8th of May all the way through to Sunday the 14th of May. And that, as I said, is week 19. And let us not forget that a certain thing happened last Monday, which was the coronation. I don't know if you were there. I'm sure you're a patriotic bloke up there in the Lake District. You were waving the flags and having your tea and biscuits while Charlie and Camilla were going down the aisle.
I knew I had to stay away from London for that weekend, definitely. So, but I actually was at Liverpool Brentford. I was at the football match on when the King was being.
Well, of course, you're a Liverpool supporter. How are they doing, by the way?
Yeah, they've left it a bit late this season, but they have put an impressive run together at the end of the season. So, reasons to be cheerful.
Excellent. Right then. So, well, those of you that follow the show, we do follow a standard format, and we go deep dive, and we're going to look straight at the number of new listings. So you shout up, mate, as we go on this.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I've obviously looked at these before. Thank you for sending them through. And, I keep my own stats, which are from a similar place that you get yours. So it's been interesting that when I was last involved in the show around the Easter period of time, and Easter was earlier this year, we may remember, than previous years. So it skewed the numbers a little bit in a like-for-like basis. So I was very keen to see the sort of the bounce back, if you like. But of course, May is traditionally a very strong month for the residential market. The weather gets better and so on. But of course, we've had the extra bank holidays with the coronation, as you mentioned before. So be interesting to see what's happened because of that, and is there going to be another little bounce back on the back of it, which I suspect there will be, but not an overall. Bad set of numbers. We've talked, I think, certainly the times that I've been on here with the 2023 comparison to 2019, which was, as we said before the COVID years. So it's interesting to see that we're, becoming more and more balanced now with those numbers.
To give you an idea, just to give you a reflection, the 30,773, the running average for the year so far is 31,770 properties. So again, we're in the right sort of ballpark. Next, we look at the average price that those properties are coming on the market at. 456. Last week it was 448. The week before 446, and the running average is 428. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, this was an interesting one because I had suspected, and I will no doubt come on to it, that with the ever increasing amounts of adjustments being made to asking prices, that I guess the sale price will be significantly different to this. I would have thought probably not far off 50 to 100 grand, probably less than that. But it is interesting that in a market where the public are being told that house prices are falling, there's little evidence that they are falling dramatically when they're coming onto the market. So I think there's still an appetite, certainly from my side, when I talk to sellers, of wanting to try and get a good price, which is fueled by a number of factors, particularly inflation and other cost of living issues. People are wanting to try to find, as many pennies as they possibly can. But there's definitely an acceptance that if that is not achieved, then it should be coming down. And I've said before, the critical thing that I look at here is the time between when it's listed and when it achieves its first adjustment. So I'm particularly keen on that. But it's no surprise that we've seen a bit of a bounce on that.
Good stuff. Right. Okay. We'll now go on to the accumulative listings to date. So basically, the odometer was put back to zero, and how many properties have been put on the market up to date. I mean, the thing that screams here is the 2020, but obviously things did go. We were still in lockdown, and we were only just coming out, I think, middle to the end of May. But I think you can quite clearly see here is that now in 23 we're about to overtake 21, which would surprise an awful lot of people, but we're still slightly behind 18 and 19. Thoughts on this one, Bryan?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, 2020, we were in lockdown, as you've mentioned. So, of course, the figures, should be largely ignored for that purpose, really. And again, from my point of view, my comparison, as I've mentioned before, is 2019, which was the last normal market in terms of the balance between sellers and buyers. But it is, again, encouraging as we've seen listings begin to pick up, as we predicted they would do, particularly after Easter. And I suspect that at some point, they will, within the next month to 2 months, probably catch up or exceed 2019.
Good stuff. Right. Well, we'll see. Now, let's all bring all this together. And we've got this graph here, which basically...
I think, Chris, actually, sorry to say, on the listings point, there's an anomaly this year that wasn't perhaps available in 2019, or wasn't a driving force in 2019, which is why just to add a bit of context to what I believe we're going to see moving forward, and that is that it pains me to say, but more people are struggling financially, and that is causing the listing of a property, the disposal of that asset, to free up capital, or maybe to downsize earlier than perhaps they would have done. Because if you're rattling around in a big house, it's costing you a lot more money to run that house than it was in 2019, significantly more. And I suspect that will be an added driving force to the 2023 market that perhaps we didn't see back then, hence why I think it's going to accelerate.
I mean, you said earlier on when we looked at the average price of the listing, that is, some people say this is overvaluing. I'm of the opinion, and the stats do show this, and again, we haven't got hours and hours on the show to go into this depth, but I've gone down that rabbit hole. There are a greater propensity of larger houses coming on the market in the last 12 months than there were before COVID. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got two, as I say, I've just given one reason why larger houses will be coming to the market. And the second one is increasing mortgage rates. You've got people who've stretched themselves to probably the limit, as a lot of people do, bought a very expensive house, lockdown, pre-lockdown, but would have got a 2% fixed 5-year mortgage, 2-year mortgage. And that is a nasty surprise now, bouncing out of that, even onto a new fixed rate. You're at least doubling your interest rate. So that's going to have a huge impact alongside cost of living, alongside the cost inflation, in terms of how you're able to manage your income every month in comparison to the mortgage you're paying.
Interestingly, I've been talking to a number of people, and a lot of people are extending their mortgage term, and we've had some bad press on this in the news, in the press, newspapers saying, "Oh my word, we're going to be we're extending mortgages to 35, 40 years. But if you actually go back, most people who bought, when we were lads and we bought our first houses in the late 90s, if you bought a house at 25 and your mortgage was for 25 years, you would expect your pay you off at 50, wouldn't you? Because obviously that's 25 plus 25. But most people pay their mortgage off at 58, 59, 60. It's about 58, but there's even more. So everyone has in the past extended their mortgages when they've moved. We're just happening to be doing it a little bit earlier. Probably we're turning into more of a Germany where 50-year mortgages are not unheard of, and in some they could almost be a lifetime mortgage.
Yeah, I think I know that actually whatever people decide to do with terms of mortgage, rates of mortgage, et cetera, should significantly be attached to their lifestyle and their life choices, and certainly their plan. If you're going to be staying in a property for 10 years and you want to live a life where you have a balanced monthly amount, well, you're going to pay a bit more for that on a fixed rate, but actually then at least you've got the stability and the certainty of knowing you'll be able to budget for a period of time. But if you don't, then go for something else. And it's kind of, no surprise, as I say, that you're seeing a higher level of value of property coming to the market for those reasons.
Good stuff. Right then. This particular graph shows the weekly listings compared to 19, 18 and 17. There's your dip going down into Easter,
yeah.
Once back, we down. But again, look at all this. These are all over like a roller coaster at Blackpool, mate.
Yeah. Well, we said obviously that the Easter weekend was a bit earlier than the last couple of years. Obviously, 2018 is a good comparison because it was even earlier. But it's followed a similar line, hasn't it, with a slight bounce. And I think the anomaly we might be seeing is like you said, is the coronation, where the country stood still again for a period of time, similar to an Easter break.
What is particularly interesting is this: we had this dip where we went from around 35,000 listings, which was here, and we dipped down to 32 and 27, and then we dipped back up again at 36, 37 here. What is particularly interesting is that if you take the average of all 4 weeks, it's just the bloody long-term average.
Yeah.
So, so again, just pink is now this year, and then the other 2 years, as you can see on the colours there. Let's move on and go to number of price changes. And we've got 18,000 price changes. The average per month, per week is 17,668 price changes. It just shows agents are working their stock rate, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've got stats on here, have we not, to show the number of properties actually on the market, because always this is directly relevant to two things: the percentage of your stock that is sitting on the sticky stock, as we've referred to it in the past, that's sitting on the estate agent shelf. What percentage of your stock that is unsold are you adjusting? But also a comparison to the length of time it takes to get those changes. But it isn't, this is no surprise that this is now exceeding the last 5 years, because that's the market we're in. High expectation of price from a seller, a much lower expectation of purchase price from the buyer. You've got the essence of an agency has always been to negotiate in the middle, negotiate with the seller on the price of their property to get it to a level that attracts significant interest that will start to see offers coming in.
Okay, so we've just pulled up those stats whilst you were talking. If we based 18,000 and then make that into a month, and then divide it by the number of properties that are currently on the market, we're running on that we are reducing 12.89% of our stock on a monthly basis.
Okay.
Now, what is particularly interesting at the moment, number of properties for sale is 586,000, whilst in March it was 593. Now, that would surprise a lot of people that the number of properties coming on, the number of stock is actually lower.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you've got withdrawals that have risen, in that data set, which would also, as well. I mean, the sales haven't gone through the roof, so you've got the same proportion of sales to percentage of stock. But I suspect that you might see that you've had, that the agencies are having people for various reasons removing the properties from the market, particularly if they fall apart and they decide to sit tight and wait it out.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the stats now, and you're absolutely bang out. The number of withdrawals have absolutely exploded in the last 2 months. So there you go. Great insight, mate. I tell you what. There's a reason why we ask you on.
Not just a good guess.
Okay, then. Good stuff. Right. Okay. So, I mean, just to give you an idea, just so you're aware, we'll just do this. So we are filming this. Oh, okay. Hold on a second. I'm just going to do this just for what's name and giggles. Okay. Hold on a second. And we're going to go up there. So the number of withdrawals in the last month, 31,058, which is, I mean, that is just under 9% of the stock, isn't it? No, isn't. It's 31 divided by 536. Let's just have a quick look. That's about 7%. I don't know if that is. You keep fitting, mate, and I will.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very, very high, very, very high, and you know, it's no surprise really when you have a market where you are leaning on your sellers quickly or leaning on them full stop to change the price. You've got to be mindful of their personal situation. That the rules that I've always followed would be that, you know, each individual person trying to sell a property, you understand exactly why they're moving, which is part of the listing process. You keep making sure that you are up to date with that reason. And obviously, if someone is instructing you to sell their house because they need to find another one and you're hammering them for price reductions, they're going to go one way. They're going to become demotivated, and quite likely you will accelerate them towards the decision to come off the market. They're not finding something, or maybe they're finding something at a price that is too high, but yet they're being leveraged to reduce the price of theirs. And so the differential is widening, you know, all the time, and it's just putting people off. So there really has to be a proper commercial attitude towards managing customers in a time like this than agents haven't used in the last 3 to 4 years.
Okay, I've just done a back of the fag packet stuff, and around agents are losing 10% of their stock every single month to withdrawals.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's actually getting quite ridiculous when you think about, you know, the lack of business acumen in a lot of these businesses where you've got, I wouldn't even call them businesses, where you've got, you know, a willful disregard of customers when they're falling through, poor checks on sales, bad property management of individual sellers and their circumstances, focus on possibly getting a price reduction so that you can tick a box. And what you're actually doing is you're going to kill your business, because if you're seeing 10% of your stock coming away, you've removed the increase the market's given you, and therefore you're back to where you were in lockdown with half the number of buyers that you had back then, and those buyers don't want to buy as much as they did. So there's got to be, and I've said this before on this show, and I make no apologies for it, there has got to be a different way and a different strategy and a different plan in your business. You cannot approach this market the way that you did last year, the year before, 2020, and even 2019, because the world is a different place and attitudes have changed. You know, and so there has to be a proper strategy per property to get these people moved. And if that means that, you know, you have to sit on the stock until you help them find somewhere and give them the encouragement and then negotiate, which is the term that is bandied around the industry, but we see little of it, negotiate between the parties in a chain rather than just your transaction to get everybody moving, then that's what needs to be done. Not, we've got this property, it hasn't sold, we haven't had any viewings on it, let's hammer them and get the price down. Blissfully ignoring the fact that these people are probably unlikely to do that because they haven't found somewhere.
Exceptional insight, mate. Exceptional. Let's just come back to our stats. I hope you enjoyed that, boys and girls. I'm sure we could get more of that throughout the program. The average price of a property being reduced, 406, running average.
But again, this is you know, really frustrating, because what I can see from these stats is that you've got, back to what we talked about with the listing price, you've got listing prices at 458 or whatever it was in a market area where, you know, properties are selling on average around about the mid 300s. So if you've got stock where there's no buyers and you're trying to reduce that stock, you're ignoring the market that actually is active, which is where your focus needs to really be constantly, and getting more bang for your buck in a market where we've spoken before, where there's people wanting to buy. Fish where the fish are. You know?
Remember, boys and girls, we're talking about UK property stats here, and what's 400 grand in one place is cheap as chips somewhere else, and vice versa. So we're actually going to drill down and look at the regional stats and what's happening regionally, and then we'll do that later on. And you'll be able to download all these stats for you at no cost on the YouTube channel. We'll look on the description of this video, and you can download them for your own personal benefit. You can also find this information on a town-by-town basis using the software, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Okay, let's look at gross sales, which is the number of properties that have sold. And this week we are on 20,934. Now, last week we were at 22,600, the week before 26,200, 24,900, 19 and 20. So, but what is particularly interesting is we've had the same issue that we had with listings. 2 shit weeks, 2 amazing weeks, and now all of a sudden we seem to be leveling off a bit. Thoughts, Bryan?
I'm interested to know the comparison between this week, and the week following Easter, which would have been, what was that, week 16, week 17?
Okay, right. So,
but what I mean, the point being,
week going into Easter 20,500.
Yeah.
The week coming out of Easter 19.9.
Yeah.
Okay. The week after 24.9. The week
after, so 24.9 is the comparative week because the coronation was the weekend before last. Yeah.
Okay, we've got 26.2.
Yeah.
And then the week before, which was ending on the Sunday because the coronation was on the Saturday, was 22.3. And then obviously we have Coronation Bank Holiday Monday this week's at 20.9. Just, I tell you what, let's just cut to the chase. There you go. It's a roller coaster.
That's easier. So, it's following a similar trend, isn't it? So, let's hope that we've got another bank holiday coming up as well, which is, it'd be interesting to see how that affects. But thankfully, one without, huge level of distraction.
What screams at me, Bryan, on this one is this: let's go back to this. How everything from week 3 all the way through to week 14 is almost identical.
Yeah.
Okay, in terms of 23 versus 17, 18, and 19. Then, and our pink line, which is 23, she goes up and down like a roller coaster. But all the other places which have got their Easters, they've also got a roller coaster. It almost Easter cocks things up, then it comes back, then she levels off. I wonder what's going to happen later in the year. Does it all settle down like it does here in Feb and March and April? Who knows?
Well, it'd be interesting to see, the 2019 full year graph, because obviously we've been doing a lot of comparisons with all of the years, but I've talked particularly about 2019. Be interesting to see what 2019 looks if we did a fast forward week 22 to 52, what that line looked like, because I suspect that we will see a similarity between that market and this market, albeit, as I've said, possibly with higher listing numbers and potentially slightly lower sales.
Well, as the weeks go by, we will see these things and hopefully get to find this out. Let's just have a quick look. The average, this is a cumulative gross sales year to date. Okay, so we're sitting on 411,000.
Yeah.
What is particularly interesting, now you mentioned this earlier on, is the price of the properties that are being sold. So let's just remember, boys and girls, the average price of a property coming on the market in the UK, and we do have the regional stats. If you wait till a little bit, in about 10 minutes, we'll get to the regional stats in a second. The average price of a property coming on the market last week, 456. The average price of a property selling, 368. That means there is a 23.9% difference. And that gap has been pretty constant. The average listing price since January 23 is 428 versus the average sale price of 355. That is nearly an £80,000 gap. Means that the bigger houses have a lower propensity of selling. Anything to add before we move on?
No, it's exactly what I'd predicted. When I said, I said 50 to 100. So it's between those two numbers. So it is following a similar trend, isn't it? And the message hasn't changed. We know what the market is. We definitely know what it's like now. Yes, we've had a couple of bumps with bank holidays and events and etc. But actually, we know the model is the die is cast, right? We know what we're going to do. If your buyers are all fish swimming around the middle 300s or the middle of your your market, then that's where your stock needs to be. So are all your activities that you're doing to generate business, to get prices adjusted correctly, are they all laser focused in the area where you have buyers, rather than just grabbing anything that comes onto the market, irrespective of where the buyer mark is, and trying to get everything down in price? And that is probably what's happening, in all fairness, which is why we're seeing the higher number of withdrawals.
I'd be interested. We probably, I won't now because
the price of the properties that are being withdrawn
are coming off. That would be absolutely fascinating. Right. Okay. So this is the number of sale fall throughs. I tell you what, Bryan, you just have a chat about this, and I'm going to have a quick look and find out the average price of the properties being withdrawn. I'll be able to do that quite quickly.
No surprise on this. I'd worked out that each individual sale, both its value and its abortive value, or its negative value, so its positive and negative value, was around about 3,500. So, you're talking 1%. I use that as a benchmark, thankfully on the lower side of hopefully what people are charging. But as you've just confirmed with the 358 average house price that's selling, that kind of fits quite nicely into calculations. So the net sales value of this week, which we're going to come on to see in a moment, is £57.5 million of commission if your average fee was 3,500. So that's the units times the 3,500, equates to a gross commission pool for English estate agents of 57.5 million. However, as I've mentioned on these calls before, the gross abortive value of fall throughs at 4,506 is 15.7 million. Again, if you assumed a £3,500 average fee was the fee that was aborting. Now, there's two things. There was a report out a few months ago regarding the average cost involved in buying a house that is lost if a sale falls apart. There's been figures between 2.5 and 3.5. But if you think about the loss that a individual seller or buyer has when the sale breaks, is a similar loss to the estate agent in terms of their fee. And I appreciate they might resell it, but that's going to cost them more money. So if you think that £15.7 million of fees have fallen this week, if you now annualize that, this is a £1 billion problem. Just to take this week in isolation at 4,506 and make the assumption that we sell the same number of houses moving forward and we abort the same amount of transactions. There's definitely apathy in the market for that. It's what happens. Then you're talking about over £820 million of commission that is being wiped out. That is there. It's there. You've got a willing buyer, a willing seller initially, so it seems, who are then free to change their mind, causing financial devastation as well as emotional devastation to everybody involved, including estate agents. And if you said to somebody, £15 million has gone this week from commission, that's a lot of money for every single estate agent in the market. So it's a big problem. It's a big problem in a time where the costs involved in running your agency are higher because of the cost of living. People running businesses are under pressure, and I'm sure they all are, for wage demands and staffing. And I was talking to someone yesterday who was saying it's never been easier to poach staff than they're finding right now, because they throw a few quid at somebody and they're off and running. Because of course, all of our personal margins of living have been reduced dramatically with all the reasons we know, with inflation and so on. So when you've done the work to achieve, so work has gone on in week 19 that's resulted in £15.7 million of sales that are not going to go through anytime soon. I'm not entirely sure what else has to be done or has to happen for businesses to start to think differently about how they're going about all this.
Right. Thank you very much, Bryan. Boys and girls, we don't allow advertising on this one, but Bryan does have a solution for that with his Gazeal product.
Unsurprisingly, yeah.
Yeah, unsurprisingly. But again, do check it out because it is a fantastic bit of kit. And I'm really surprised that the agents don't do that. Right, that's the end of the promo. Now, this is interesting. Since January the 1st, there have been, remembering that there's 536,000 properties available on the market at the moment, there have been 225,994 withdrawal properties.
Wow. What?
At an average price, this has blown my mind, at an average price of 462,329.
There you go.
Now, what is particularly interesting is this. I've looked at the top 10 UK estate agents by new instructions since the 1st of January. And, to give you an idea, the number one estate agent in the UK is Purple Bricks. In terms
For listings.
Sorry?
For listings.
For listings, okay. So since January the 1st, they've had 1.7% of the market for new instructions, but in terms of their withdrawals, 1.59. Okay. Stay with me.
So just put some context on that for our viewers, Chris. So what is the total amount of listings that equates to?
Purple Bricks have put on the market 10,240 listings since the 1st of January.
And withdrawn?
3,586.
Oh my God.
Okay, then. This is okay. Now, all of them. Okay, so next we'll do, let's do William H. Brown, which is part of Connell Sequence Group. They've put on the market 7,836 properties. And hold on a second, let me just check that. That doesn't seem right. Yeah, okay, 7,836 properties they put on the market, withdrawn 3,211.
That's outrageous.
Okay, then, wait, it gets worse. I'm not saying this is bad, but I'm just saying the one that sticks out in terms of is Foxtons. They've put on the market 5,597 properties and had withdrawn 3,693.
When you think about the fact that these withdrawn figures, with possibly the exception of Purple Bricks, have not generated any revenue at all. On a no sale, no fee model, they would have generated no commission. Now, I accept they may have generated a remortgage if they've withdrawn, and possibly they wouldn't have had a mortgage if they'd withdrawn. A new mortgage, that is, but there's a remortgage opportunity there, and potentially a conveyancing opportunity on the remortgage. So there is a little bit of opportunity for withdrawns, and there's obviously a rental opportunity if someone is, etc. But they're the only ones really where you can monetize a withdrawn. But actually, that's peanuts in comparison to the value of commission that you would have had the opportunity to generate had you looked after those properties. And I do not accept, and I've never accepted, including my days in corporate life, that every single withdrawn property is unavoidable. It isn't. The majority of them are self-inflicted.
I mean, this is particularly interesting. If you actually look at the top 10 estate agents in the UK, up until Easter, each of them were running at around 1.4 to 1.6 of all withdrawals. Okay, top 10, they're all in roughly the same terms of market share for listings, but in terms of withdrawals, okay, if you now take in terms of withdrawals month to date, so the first 2 weeks, you've got 9. You're probably looking all of a sudden, most of them are around 3.5%, 4%.
Yeah,
so all the bigger agents seem to be clearing their stock out of withdrawals.
Yeah. What do you have in terms of just for the? I appreciate we've gone off piste a little bit here, but it's interesting when you look at the sell-through figures as well. So you look at the sales agreed and exchange figures. Well, exchanges obviously are the opportunity's gone, thankfully, in a positive way. It's become an asset in the business. When you look at the sale agreed figures, and if you add the sale agreed figures to the withdrawn figures, and I suspect that the withdrawn figures may very well include fall-throughs. If they've been fallen through and then come away from the market, they'd be marked as a withdrawn rather than just a fall-through. I say that from experience. But actually, there's a term that we used to use back in the day called net cabinet. Okay, I don't know if you know what that means, but net cabinet refers back to the good old days of the 80s, which everybody, moans at me about coming back. But there was a lot of sense in this when we used to run a business very efficiently, very simply, with one filing cabinet. The top drawer, and it represented the flow of property. Top drawer, you put your new instructions. Your second drawer, you put your sales, then your exchanges, then your withdrawn. And every single month, if you were putting more in the top than you were taking out the others, your business is going in the right direction. But I suspect that what we're seeing at the moment, in some cases, is not that. Is that we're seeing a negative monthly net cabinet, i.e., we're putting 10 in the top on the market, we're selling 5, we're withdrawing 6, we're -1. So actually, the business is giving you a very early indication that you're going backwards. You're not growing the business by just simply looking at that algorithm.
Fascinating. Right, we're going to need to move on.
Yep.
That's the number of net sales, 16,000. Again, the running average for the month is 16,694. So we're about right. And again, we had the same dip. The cumulative net sales. So again, for anyone that doesn't know what a net sale is this: an estate agent will have a sales pipeline, like Bryan said, and there could be, say, 50 properties in this, and there are properties that have been in there like 2 weeks, 10 weeks, 19 weeks. Okay. If an agent sells 4 houses that week, that's 4 gross sales. If one sale falls through in that 50 cabinet, then it leaves the sales, the sales drawer. So therefore the net sales is 3, because 4 gross sales with -1 fall through equals 3 net sales. That's what a net sale is, just so you're aware. This is the stuff that's going to meet estate agents' bottom lines and pipelines. So we're presently running on 317,865, which is 93.5% of the running average of 17, 18 and 19. Okay, this did drop during Easter back down to the late 80s. She's now back up to the mid 90s. She's been hovering around 93, 94 the last couple of weeks. Any thoughts on this one?
No, just, other than the fact that, again, it's no surprise. We've seen this many times when markets take a little bit of a dip. The instructions are the first thing to come back because the stock's had a bit of a battering. And if you've got the stock on, you'll hopefully sell them at some point. So one tends to follow the other by the space of a couple of weeks.
Okay, you haven't seen this graph before because this is a new one. We've just added it because people requested it. So this is net sales done on a week-by-week basis. The pink is 23. The white dots is the average of 17 and 19 combined. The yellow line is 2020, and we can quite clearly see that everything fell off the earth there, rightly so, with what happened. Always surprisingly at 22, we're not that far off 22, are we?
No.
Okay, with the blue line, obviously 21, which was the green, that was a city year. But it surprises me how close we are to 22, and also, like you said, we're almost identical to 17, 18, and 19. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Same as 2020.
yeah. Well, less said about that, the better. Okay, so this is the number gross sales as a percentage of listings. You being ex-Countrywide, these are a couple of graphs that really do turn on you ex-Countrywide managing directors. So maybe you just want to have a quick look at discuss these, mate.
Yeah, so we refer to, I'm sure I say we, the royal we. I referred to these as the sell-through rate, which was one of the key mechanisms that we would always manage. Our belief is that estate agents don't deliberately cause their sales to fall apart. So I tended to judge the performances of the businesses that I had the privilege of leading as what percentage of their stock were they selling, and that gave me a very good indication as to the mechanisms that the branches were adopting prior to that in terms of listing numbers, managing the stock's prices, and getting them to achieve a buyer. And 68%, I'll be honest with you, it was normal. That's, we would look for that as a minimum. 60% was the minimum. You'd expect 6 out of 10 to go under offer each month of your listing numbers. But actually, what I would be doing now, if I was going back into estate agency again, is that whilst I would keep an eye on this because it's a key performance indicator, I would be looking at the collective value of my listed stock that was for sale. So all the asking prices added up, divided by the amount of commission that we're charging each customer, should we be successful? And what is that total opportunity? And start to manage the business on that way. How much can we forecast that we should be selling, and financial revenue predictions each month moving forward? And you would use the underlying 68 to 70% as your barometer for good and bad.
Good stuff. Well, just give you an idea, the running average for the year is 67.8. The running average for the last 7 years on all 57 years of 52 weeks is 76%. Next, we move on and look at price changes as a percentage of listings. And we're up at 59.4. The year running average is 42. Anything you want to say on this one?
Well, no, only other than the fact that I think you mentioned that the listing price adjustments or changes as a percentage of stock was about 12%, wasn't it? I think you mentioned.
Yes, 12.8, yeah. Which
is above what we used to say was the minimum level, which was 10%. We should be, but again, the critical thing on this, we've said all before, is this is all wonderful, and all there ever is with these types of KPIs is more questions to be asked, because if you have that level of your listing stock being changed by price, but you're not achieving the sale rate, then simply you're not getting enough off the property. Or you're adjusting the price of a property where there are no buyers or few buyers, which is basically wasting your time and your money, because time is money.
Indeed.
So that's a good barometer. 59.41% is, we would say is on the better side of the line, but the value of the adjustments is critical, which is why if you measure it against the value, then you've got a slightly clearer picture of how effective you're likely to be.
This is fall-throughs as a percentage of sales in week 19. Obviously, 2020 sticks out like a great big sore thumb, but we would expect that. Just to give you an idea, the average in Q4 was late 30s. The 7-year running average is 24.28%. So at 21.5, doesn't look bad at all there. And the last few weeks, we've been hovering around those sort of numbers.
Yeah, but like I said before, if you then add in the volume of instructions that you're withdrawing to the fall throughs compared to what you're listing, the critical thing that people should be sitting down and doing today or tomorrow is working out my cabinet value. Am I putting on small stock that I'm removing? Simple way to look at it.
We're now going to move on.
Growing your business. If you're not, you're going backwards.
Thank you, Brian. Right, now we're going to move on and look at the regional figures. Before we do, we'll just have a quick look at the national stats. We're not going to spend too long on these, boys and girls. The bottom line is this: green is good and red is bad. Green is good and red is bad. So have a look at this, and you are able to download these from YouTube. Go to the description, and the little description there. We're not going to spend too much time. Let's just fleetingly go through this. And what is particularly, so hold on. Oh, look, you've got 2 of those, Brian. 2 for the price of 1. Right, we now move on and look at the regional stats. Green is good, red is bad. I find it absolutely fascinating. Again, week 14 and week 15 were Easter, and then week 16 and 17 were the 2 weeks post-Easter. Look how even though the market is lots of little, like a fly's eye, everything dropped in Easter and everything came back. I just love the tonality that the greens are always in the same places, whether you're in Scotland or Penzance. Weird.
Yeah. Well, it's not weird. It's the appetite. The people who are selling and buying are watching the national news on housing markets rather than, maybe spending as much time or more time looking at their direct regional market or local market news.
Their own town. Interesting. Again, if you look in terms of the colours, the way to judge your market is see what tonality you have on the colours and see where it matches. And we can quite clearly see with East Midlands and East Anglia and East of England that we're talking the sort of stuff that we're seeing in March and early April. Okay, we are going to not spend much time on these. Again, inner London, we had a fantastic couple of weeks ago after Easter, which is just eased off a bit there. And again, you can spend as much time as downloading these to your heart's content. And just shout up, Brian. I don't know if you've got anything to say on these.
No, not really. Just other than the fact of what you've already said, that it's interesting to look at, comparisons region to region, and they're largely the same.
And again, we're looking at the percentages that we talked about. Again, you can see what your town, what your region is doing. Again, these are all available to download. There's no point in us going over these because we've already done the national figures and what it means. You could just see the trend on your area and take a decision from there.
Interesting. Really good would be a map of the country. I was just about to say it would be great to see a map of the country, and you just put one up for the first time ever. Well done.
And that was not scripted, boys and girls.
That wasn't. No.
Okay, so we're actually going to go and move over to a website where this information is on, and this is. Hold on a second. We'll just pull that up. Hold on a second. It's all good stuff, Brian. So this is my new website that I love, and I'm a massive fan of 20EA and their insights platform. But there's this new website called Bricks and Logic. Okay. And again, they're not paying me to do this, but I have access to this, and you can have access to this as well. And it's an amazing bit of data. But basically, this is, and you can change the dates up here to 6 months, 3 months. But this is what properties are selling for in now versus what they were selling for 12 months ago. But I could change that to 6 months or whatever I wanted to. Okay.
So we're looking at red or shades of yellow that are negative, so they're lower than they were, and the others are not.
So remember, boys and girls, this pardon me, the color, the key does change. It's dynamic as it moves. Okay, you can fix it if you want to, but basically, let's have a look as we go over the country, and we're going up to Wales now, and you can quite clearly see that if we're going into North Birmingham there, it's quite posh, and we're up to the 6% prices. Let's go up the M6 to Manchester. Okay, let's have a look. There we go. Preston seems to be doing quite well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. We're coming to your part of the world in the Lake District there. Okay. Yep. Okay, now we're coming into Newcastle. Newcastle seems to be doing quite well. And again,
Chris, sorry to interrupt, are we saying that because you've got on the graph there 7%, so is this plus 7%?
Yes.
Or lower? So red is good.
Red means prices up, prices achieved today, not what Land Registry says, because they are 6 to 12 months away. This is sale agreed prices today versus sale agreed prices 12 months ago. Okay, so almost what we're doing.
So hot and cold we're looking at in terms of the colorings, yeah.
Okay. Now, Lincolnshire doesn't seem to be doing quite well. We've got a bit of a cold spot around Boston. Okay. We now move down into London, and let's zoom into London. I think that's quite interesting there. Okay. Interesting that the hot market seems to be out to the southeast.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. We've got a lot of agents along the Medway corridor going into Kent and from out of London, and very strong performances. Again,
there's Kent doesn't seem to be doing quite well. But this is from Bricks and Logic. So please do go and check them out. There's some absolutely fantastic stats that you go with. This rent, pound per square foot, number of bedrooms. It is absolutely insightful. Okay, boys and girls, we are now going to go to, well, Brian, I said to you that some of those graphs were roller coasters. So where is the place where the main roller coasters are?
Got to be Blackpool and the Big Dipper.
It's got to be Blackpool and Big Dipper, and that's where we're going, mate. We are going to sunny Blackpool. So, boys and girls, let's just pull this up. Hold on a second. We'll just get rid of that.
Shout out to Stephen Chu, who's got a very good business in Blackpool.
He's a nice lad. I like him.
Yeah.
So, for the purposes of this, we are looking at the postcodes of F1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the posh bit is called Thornton Cleveley's, but it is Blackpool, but they call it something different because they're a bit posh up there, is F5, okay? And we are, can you see the screen?
Yep.
So we are looking between the 1st of the 1st, 21 through to the 15th of May, okay? let's just make a mental note. The average price of a property that's come on the market in those 2.5 years has been 165,000. Let's remember that, because when we look at the individual agents, we will be able to see. So this is new instructions. So we've got the first agent, which is called the Square Room. Okay, they're not bad, are they? 185,000 as well, which means they get more middle, slightly higher price properties. I don't know if you shout up if you knew any. I know you said you know.
I don't know. I know Stephen Chew, obviously Entwistle Green, Farrell Hayworth, but I don't know the rest.
Okay, so the next one is Unique Estate Agents. Wow, there's a lot of movement here, isn't there, with regard to listings? Okay, they're 193, so they're obviously a posh agent. Let's go.
Can you just do me a quick favour? Can you just, under new build, can you take out and put no for new build, false?
There you go.
All right, it doesn't change things too much. Okay.
It will do. Not much, but it will do change a bit. Okay. Interestingly, look, here we go. Look at the price band that gets the most properties, 100 to 150. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. McDonald's, 150. Wow. There's a lot. It's like an oscilloscope here, isn't it? I can never say that word. Roman James.
It's a very impressive word.
What, oscilloscope?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those words I can't say.
Squiggly graph, I would have said.
Okay, then. All right. So Tiger Sales, they tend to be more, should we say, the more lower quartile, lower third, because their average price is 130. Stephen Chew.
Yeah.
Again, it looks like they've been seems to be growing quite well. Entwistle Green, which are a corporate. Okay. Farrell Hayworth, which I think they're also a part of a corporate now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Good agency. Duncan Rustic. Okay, he seems to be growing slightly. And then Susan Eve. Oh, she seems to. There you go, really. We could have a quick. We'll just have a quick look at the number of sales. And again, as you would. So again, interesting look. The Square Room, they have 14.6% of sales, but in terms of new instructions, 13. So I'm hoping the Square Room will have some good figures. Unique, 8.4. Let's look at the sales, 9.2. So again, the bigger agents have a slightly higher propensity to sell. We'll actually have some stats on that in a minute, Brian. Any thoughts on that before we go to the next slide?
No, all good.
Okay, so there's lots of information on this graph and almost too much information, but we're just going to break that one down for you. Now, interestingly, the number of properties at the moment who are on the market with online estate agents, 5.67% nationally, whilst in Blackpool, 7.1. Okay, so that's quite a high figure.
Yeah.
Now, let's ignore new instructions because we've already done new market share, and let's ignore sole subject to contracts. The magic number is this: for every property that they put on the market, you can it leaves the back door either exchanging or withdrawing, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you quite clearly see here that the Square Room, for every 100 properties they put on the market, they will exchange on 70.3. Unique will 73.3. McDonald 86. That's not bad, is it?
No, that's very good.
Okay, and McDonald's need to be really shouting about that. Stephen Chew at 77, Entwistle Green at 63. That's really good. The guys at Entwistle Green in Blackpool need to be chuffed to bits with that. Quite often, the corporate estate agents, the gap is really is almost a bit embarrassing. You want to be chuffed with that, guys. But again, there's still room for improvement into the 70s. Roman James 74, Tigers at 70. Duncan Rustrick at 64. We'll just have a quick.
But you know what's interesting, Chris? If you just scroll back up for me, right? Estate agency has never changed. Look at in the current market, the number one company that's selling the most number of houses with the most volume. Look at the graph on the far right-hand side.
This one or this one?
Sorry, the column top far right, price change percentage.
Yes.
Now, that's the equalizer because it doesn't take into account the volume. That is a percentage of the number against the number rather than the volume. So there's a surprise. The agent with the best market share, the highest number of sales, etc., and the highest number of exchanges in terms of units have the highest number of prices changed as a percentage. Much higher than the market.
Okay. I mean, look, so 41.5% of properties in Blackpool sell. Have a price restriction. Matt says that there. But look at this. McDonald's at 86, their price change rate's 30.
Yeah.
So that screams at me that they're putting the properties on at the right sort of prices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The square room seems to be working their stock a lot. Okay, 70 is not bad, but it's not 70s and 74s, and it is above the average of 67. Hunters,
You could also argue that McDonald and Company are playing it safe by listing property in a market where there's only the buyers, a lesser price, or not being brave enough on the prices that they're trying to list at.
Yeah, but you've got to admit those are quite impressive numbers. That at least the bottom line is this: if you put your house on the market with McDonald's, you have an 81% chance of moving home. Whilst with some agents on that screen, you only have a 6 in 10 chance of moving home. And I don't know, you've said before, we're not in the marketing game, we're in the house moving game.
We're in the house moving game, yeah.
Interestingly, again, Elliot Booth is quite nice there at 82, but here we go. Susan Eve, 91. You want to be a big round of applause, Susan. I have never seen a figure that high. Last week I saw Alan Batt at Wigan at 85, and I thought that's one of the highest I've seen. I couldn't remember anything higher. I've never seen anything at those sort of levels. So massive well done there, Susan, Eve, and the team there. Pearl Brick, 74. Elliot Booth at 82. Mackenzie, the real estate agent at 61. Move Homes. Okay, 32. We won't make any comments on that. Auction House are auction, so we won't touch that. And then Sell My Home must be an online estate agent. I'm assuming, if I've assumed wrong, my apologies. I find that fascinating. Interestingly, Dunton and Rustic have grown their market share for listings by 52. Stephen Tube, big round of applause, 29%. McDonald's 21. The squares, obviously Tigers and Roman James seem to be slipping slightly there. So guys, it looks like you might need some help on that one. Any comments on that before we move on to the next one?
No, I just think that, whilst I agree with you, there's some impressive numbers in the lower ends there. When you've got the volume of 700 properties, and you're selling hundreds of properties, literally in some cases, double what a lot of other competitors are selling, and you're managing the prices the way you're doing it, it's a model that seems to be working quite well. There's always lessons to learn from the leaders.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you that obviously the Square Room are running a damn good business. I have seen corporate estate agents who are throwing enough crap at the wall and enough it'll stick, and their exchange ratio is down. To give you an idea, in inner London, the number one estate agent by listings exchanges contracts on 27% of properties. Number two, and they're only on their heels, exchanges contracts on 54. Now that is massive. I think that's bad for the homeowners when it is that gap. I don't think 70 to mid 70s is huge. So you've got a point and it's valid. Okay, let's move on and look at this. Now, this particular graph here shows you that if every agent put the same house on the market, because what happens is, so this data here comes from the 20EA Insights platform. So that's the Insight platform from 20EA. This is available to buy from 20EA. It's not a lot of money. You buy it for your own postcodes. I'm not pushing this. I'm not getting any commission from this. I should be, but I don't. They just give me access to it as long as I mention it to them. Now, what they do here is they look at every single one of your listings. They do what's called what I would call a Valpal figure on that property. So therefore, they look at, so in this case, the Square Room, they've looked at all your 704 properties and looked at almost a Valpal figure for each one, an automated valuation model figure. They've looked at the 456 from unique estate agents, and then they've worked out, right, what have you put it on the market for? And then what did you sell it for? So therefore, the Square Room overvalued or put on between the value and what they sold it for 3.43%, unique at 2.4%, McDonald's. Now, this is interesting. McDonald's were the agent who sold the most houses and have got in the top 10 one of the lowest percentages at 1.19. Big lesson for you. They're obviously putting the properties on at the right price and getting the ones sold. What did you then sell it for? Okay, so from the original asking price. So you can see here that the Square Room got 3.54% less than their original asking price. How do you level all that playing field up? What they do is this. If an average Blackpool agent, stay with me, Brian, if an average Blackpool agent put a £200,000 house on the market, what would they actually sell it for from actually getting it on the market and selling it. And it quite clearly hear this. The square room, 199.5, unique 200,790. I mean, there's not a huge amount of difference here, is there?
No, there isn't. It's very, very close. It's
That's
not
quite tight. We normally get a variance of around 5 or 6% on this one.
What's interesting, you've got Patterson's, which is an auction business as well as an agency business that has one of the highest levels of resale at 222, which is obviously over 10%, 12%. So it's quite high.
Yes. But again, and you've got the other auction house here. So again, there's going to, and again, remember, this is price achieved over the asking price. So they've set a low guide price to get over it. Okay. And obviously that's affected the prices. But I think, again, these are low numbers. So let's look at the top ones. This is really tight. It's nice to see. It obviously shows that all the Blackpool agents are doing a really good job, and there's not one that's shirking. How long does it take to sell out? Well, wow, look at this. We said earlier on that the number one agent in terms of is McDonald's. They're not overvaluing their houses, because we saw that here, didn't we? With the 1.9. And they are the quickest to sell at 36 days.
Yeah. Well, that would stand to reason, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it? Okay. Yeah. If we go and look at, let's just, hold on, not that one. Sorry, let's move this. If we go and look at, let's just move this. Sorry, hold on, guys. If we go and look, who was the one that was just probably not pulling? Okay, so Entwistle Green at 63. Let's just see where they are. They take 55 days. Tigers 103. Sole subject to contract, that's the number of days between sale agreed and completion. So that's your grey bar, and then number of properties. So again, interesting that if you put your house on the market with McDonald's or Susan Eve, and we've already mentioned Susan Eve, haven't we? Susan Eve, there's what's that, 60 days, that's 6 or 7 weeks difference.
Yeah, that's huge in the time frame of moving home.
And the lesson learned here is this: the people who had the best saleability rates were McDonald and Susan Reeve, and they're selling them quicker and they're getting the right price. Now, again, boys and girls, you can get all this data from the 20 EA Insights platform. If you're trying to prove that you're worth better, then this system will work for you. Do not mention my name. I don't get any commission. I'm just a big fan of it, bit of a fanboy, as you are yourself, Brian. Anything you want to say before we have a quick look at peeky peeks at the lettings?
Other than I'd like to, buy Duncan Raystrick a beer and find out how he's getting his sales through in 2 months. Because that's
but hold on a sec. But look at this. He's doing 82 days in the orange line. So I bet you a pound to a penny. He's waiting till probably
post survey or mortgage offer.
Yeah, or something like that. Very clever on there, Duncan. Right, and we're having a quick look now at the lettings. Now, again, the lettings, in last year, a lot of people have not been putting their properties up for rent and just not even hitting the portals. So we have to take this with a slight pinch of salt. But the marketplace seems to be doing quite well. They've grown by 44%, Move Homes 43%. This is new listings. Reeds Rains at 38. Martin & Co have dropped as of Tiger and Christie's and Farrell Hayworth. Oh, sorry, guys. You've just dropped slightly on that one as well. We've got not much to say. Interestingly, the number of online agents at 14% compared to the...
It's high, isn't it? Yeah, very high.
That is particularly high. I haven't seen that much higher, actually. So, again, interestingly, Blackpool is one of those extreme places. So interestingly,
it's the online market share, and of course, that market share is huge with open rent.
Yeah, but I would expect in most places, open rent takes in late single figures, so that is quite high. So again, okay, Brian, I think we're there with Blackpool. If you are an agent in Blackpool and you have any queries on the numbers, do contact 20EA through their platform. If you want the platform, again, give them a shout. Likewise, with regard to Bricks and Logic, give them a shout. They're absolutely top people. Right, final thoughts on this before we wrap this one up, Brian?
Not an awful lot, Chris, to be honest, other than the fact that sometimes I'm quite pleased to sound like a broken record, and that is we busted a few myths earlier today with on our call, particularly that it appears as a very super basic picture that we're listing houses at over 400,000. We're trying to get those properties reduced, and then they're withdrawing. Stop wasting your time. Fish where the fish are.
And on that note, we will leave week 19. Brian, as always, you are exceptional value. when it comes
I consider it free. That's. I'm not sure if that's
everyone's free.
Not,
Hey, this takes me. It takes my colleague about an hour and a half to hoover the stats up, and it takes me about 3 hours to prepare this as well. But we do this for you guys. A, we love stats, and B, we hope you do too. Please, if you've got any locations that you want to have a look at, we do have a long list, but please do add them to it. We would love some comments, good as well as bad. Please, if we have given you value, do make a like or a comment, just so we know that you're actually getting some benefit, not for our ego, but just so you know you're getting the benefit from this. It would be very much appreciated. Bryan, thanks for your time today, but more importantly, thank you for watching this, and we hope you've got something from it. We'll see you next week, where we have another new guest, which will be Ian White, returning back with his both sets of barrels. He's absolutely fantastic. Bryan, thanks again, mate, and thank you, everyone.